All right, we're ready to reconvene tonight's work session, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody's had an opportunity to look at the agenda for this evening. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda tonight?
No, thank you.
Okay, so I'll ask then for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Newmoff, second?
Second.
Mr. Bush?
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
President McClellan?
Yes. And so our first item then is discussion items, board policy. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. Board of Education members, this evening, you will recall from our last meeting, we have proposed for you the second reading for additions to board policy specifically related to the Affordable Care Act and privacy protections of self-funded versus fully funded insurance health plans. We presented these at your last Board of Education meeting. There's statutory requirements under a federal statute that you have to adopt. Again, if there's any changes that happen based upon current conversations going on within the United States related to the Affordable Care Act, it would then be replicated through future agenda through changes in board policy. But the four policies sets that are proposed this evening dealing with group health plans through patient protection and Affordable Care Act are basically being presented for your action this evening. The second set for first reading purposes are the 0100 policies specifically for definitions. And these specifically are to update Board of Education policy to current definitions that are required. So we sent you the attachments and you can see specifically the language changes that were proposed in the strike-throughs to basically update board policy to replicate the new requirements. The third section, we present to you a series of 6 different policies that deal with conflict of interest within employee ranks, specifically administrative, classified, and non-teaching or certified licensed personnel. And then 4 other policies specifically related to technology, the privacy or protection requirements, acceptable use policies, both for staff members and for students. And again, to update policies within the board purview as required by Ohio Revised Code and or recommendations from legal counsel. So I'm not going to read them to you. You've had access to them. They've been posted on our website, basically public review. Those are first readings. I'll recommend at the board meeting on April 24th, the second reading for public action, just like we always have. But we're happy to answer any questions you may have related to the policies that we propose for revision, either this evening or in the next 2 weeks prior to our next Board of Education meeting if you have a question after tonight.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Next item is our K-5 math presentation.
President McClellan, I'd like to welcome Scott Emery, the Director of Elementary Education, who has led this project through its assessment for recommendation for this evening on your agenda. Mr. Emery.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers. At your meeting on February 27th, I had the opportunity to describe the math courses that we'll be offering at the intermediate school next school year. At that time, I said I'd return to a future school board meeting to share information about the math materials we'll be using at the elementary grades for the 2017-18 school year. I'm pleased to announce the recommendation for the adoption of the K-5 program, Bridges in Mathematics. I believe the adoption of Bridges for the elementary grades will ensure the implementation of a viable curricula, the use of common assessments, and increased mathematical outcomes for our students. I would like to share the process that led to this evening's recommendation. When the Board of Education finalized a continuous improvement plan in October with a goal of being ranked at the top 5% of Ohio school districts by 2021, I began to seek which elementary math programs were being used in our similar district comparison group that were already rated in the top 5%. Once that information was collected, I contacted the vendors from the different publishing companies and requested their materials. After reviewing 7 options, I selected the 2 programs that national reviews demonstrated had strong alignment with the Ohio math standards. As you would expect, the alignment between the math curriculum and what's tested on the Ohio exams is a significant factor that leads to our similar districts earning high passage rates on the annual state report card. Before presenting the final two options to the staff for their review, Principal Nowak and I did a site visit to the Marymount School District in January to learn more about the Bridges program. Principal Smith and Principal Unger visited another high-achieving school district in Ohio in our comparison group to learn about the other math program we are considering. Based on these visits, the elementary leadership team was comfortable presenting the two options to our teachers for their review, which we did at our in-service day on February 21st. Teachers are given access to print samples as well as online access to both programs. The Elementary K-5 Math Committee spent March 1st meeting with representatives from both programs to listen to presentations and to ask questions. Several follow-up meetings occurred in March to review state testing data, feedback from New Albany colleagues who reviewed the programs, and feedback from our colleagues in other districts around Ohio about their experiences. During Parent Conference Teacher Week, or Parent Teacher Conference Week, beginning on March 6th, 7 open houses were offered at both the K-1 and 2-5 elementary schools for parents to explore the two math programs and ask questions of me or a member of the K-5 Math Committee. These open house opportunities were communicated to our parents in February in our weekly email newsletters, and the open houses were held during school hours and in the evenings to provide flexibility to our busy parents. After much discussion and deliberation, as well as a final review by Superintendent Sawyers and Assistant Superintendent Troyer of both of the programs, my recommendation this evening is we adopt Bridges in Mathematics for our K-5 math program next year. Beyond helping us achieve continuous improvement benchmark number 1 of being rated in the top districts of Ohio and benchmark 2 for achieving at least a year's worth of academic growth, I'm excited that the Bridges curriculum has a strong focus on problem solving and application of math knowledge beyond just simply memorizing facts. High achieving districts using Bridges, such as our similar district Hudson schools, describes Bridges as having much depth and stretch, which are important characteristics for a program in a district with as many high achieving math students as ours. In order to allow our teachers to implement Bridges with fidelity, 2 full days of training will be offered next month to all elementary classroom teachers. 1-day sessions and specialized Bridges intervention materials will be offered to our special education teachers. Teachers will be provided all of the Bridges materials for their review during the summer, and we'll also put in place 1.5 instructional leader positions to support or coach our teachers during the first year. This was strongly recommended by our similar districts also using Bridges. For new teachers we hire after the May trainings, we plan to partner with the Westerville schools, who is also adopting Bridges for their use next school year with their students to provide additional summer opportunities for professional development. I'm excited to share that after learning of the potential of adopting a consistent math program for the elementary grades, the K-1 and 2-5 PTOs within the last week have pledged to combine $24,000 to ensure that all New Albany teachers have access to all of the classroom materials they need to implement Bridges curriculum with their students next year. One product that is not provided by Bridges is a program that's comparable to the ALEKS online system. So we do plan to continue offering ALEKS to all the elementary students in grades 3 and higher next school year. With that being said, McGraw-Hill, which sells ALEKS, is also offering a new primary program called Redbird, and Mrs. Smith and I do plan to investigate Redbird to compare it to ALEKS as a potential option for 3rd grade. Thank you for your time and your support for the approval of Bridges and the mathematics programs, and hopefully with your approval on the agenda this evening, this will permit me to move forward with teacher training next month. I look forward to updating you at future meetings about our elementary initiatives and welcome any questions you may have about this recommended adoption and its alignment to our statement of purpose and our continuous improvement plan. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Emery. Really appreciate it. 2 questions. First one is, how would this adoption impact the SLCs next year?
Specifically with Bridges, the impact is driven as much by the math progressions from the February board meeting. We found at the intermediate school this year with the new math courses that we're putting into place, it's really hard to maintain that consistency of cohort moving from grade to grade, which the SLC structure has meant to allow us to do. So next year at the intermediate school, we will not be able to continue with the SLC structure since we really have no way to ensure to our parents we can keep students in cohorts. At the elementary school, the bigger driver is the number of sections we have per grade level. Next year, we anticipate having 14 sections in first grade, whereas we'll have 16 in second grade, and I believe 13 in third grade. Because of this, we really can't maintain cohorts year after year. So I guess that answer to a very specific question is we cannot maintain SLCs in their current format next year, but I'll express in writing to all of our parents in an upcoming newsletter about why we're making that change. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
The other question I have is how does the Bridges program complement 6 through 12 math curriculum?
That's a great question. Dr. Hamilton and I have been discussing the 6 through 12 range a lot, particularly with the transition of sixth grade transitioning to the elementary realm next school year with reconfiguration. So our hope next year is to really look at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math in particular to see whether or not those resources are aligning with Bridges in mathematics. It's a question I've been asking each of the districts that currently use Bridges. They've been taking a variety of approaches. We just want to make sure the approach that we decide to take in the future makes sense for our students.
Thank you very much.
Kids sound excited about it.
That's the robotics team.
Go ahead.
Mr. Emery, I was just curious, you mentioned you're going to have 1.5 instructional leaders. Will that come from existing math teachers at K-5 level?
Well, I don't want to give any sneak previews yet. We just finished interviews late last week. I did final interviews on Friday. We're meeting with Superintendent Sawyers and Assistant Superintendent Schroyer tomorrow to get their approval on our recommended choices. It will be existing New Albany staff. We're not hiring anybody from outside the district, but those coaches will be made aware of their new positions this week.
And I was just curious, you mentioned you talked to a number of different vendors, a number of different schools. Was there anything about Bridges, top 1 or 2 things that really stood apart as to why? What did it come down to?
I think from an administrative side, one thing shared to me from Hudson Schools resonated with the fact that since switching to Bridges, they don't necessarily even think about the state examinations. They just keep teaching math. When the state exams come, they know their children are prepared. The children take the test, and if you were to see their passage rates and their growth data, you'd be really impressed with the results. I think that really made me happy. I think from the student perspective, the teachers I spoke with that are using Bridges just say they see an energy and an excitement about math that maybe didn't exist with previous programs that they used. Bridges is it's produced by a nonprofit company, so it's a very interesting dynamic in working with a for-profit company because they're very particular about which districts can adopt their program, and they really want a solid commitment that you're going to give 80 minutes a day to math. And if you're not willing to commit to 80 minutes a day of math instruction, they do not want you to use their program. So in a way, it was almost a two-way sort of relationship that needed to be built. So they understood we plan on implementing this program with fidelity, and they understood, and that I understood that their program materials were best for our students. I'm excited about the choice. I actually liked both of the final options, but after reviewing all the information and talking to other districts, I think we're going the right direction for our boys and girls.
Thank you. It's exciting.
Do you think there'll be any gaps in the transition from old to new?
Yes. And that's just one of the realities of the first year of any implementation. That's not specific to Bridges and mathematics, but that's one thing we need to be ready to address. There's a strong emphasis on problem solving and application in this program. The other districts I spoke with said the teachers just need to be aware that the rigor of this program may not be what some students were used to from previous programs.
It'll be more rigorous.
From the districts I've spoken with, yes,
Okay.
It's a much more challenging program, not necessarily in the speed in which it moves. You're not trying to say
The depth.
compress 2 years of math knowledge in one, but the state assessments now are really focused on how deeply do you understand the content that's being tested for that grade level? Can you really apply what you've learned this year to solve complicated problems? And that's what I'm hearing from other districts, that they've been most impressed with Bridges. Their students are thinking about math in all new ways and solving very challenging problems that are set in front of them.
That's cool. It sounds exciting.
It'll be a challenge, but we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are we currently at 80 minutes a day of instruction, or will that be new?
That will be an increase, yes.
Okay. So that'll be a new challenge for kids too.
Mhm. Yeah, and luckily the Bridges program is structured where there's a 60-minute math block and then a 20-minute math block, because they understand the reality of elementary scheduling, or any scheduling, even at the secondary level. It's hard to find 90 minutes
Right. Solid.
consecutively, particularly that time, that 90 minutes that we do have is usually reserved for language arts. So you're able to split it into 2 sections each day.
Thank you. It's exciting.
These are all good questions. The only thing I'll add is that, I just appreciate the fact that all of this effort has gone in and has been informed by our statement of purpose and our continuous improvement plan. So we are all continually aligned, moving in the same direction. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's a credit to certainly Superintendent Sawyers and Assistant Superintendent Troyer, because that's always the first questions they ask me. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to all the staff members that participated in the process. It's been 6 months plus in the making to get to tonight. So that 8 minutes really doesn't tell you about the work that's actually gone into this by Scott, the principals, and the math committee, and then all the teachers at the specific grade levels, and even the parents that were at the open houses that Scott talked about for curriculum nights to actually see the materials. So there's a lot more to come. This is just the start of the journey tonight when you formally take action to approve the expenditure necessary to purchase bridges.
Very good. Next item,
Track.
track resurfacing.
Becky's going to talk about the track.
Okay.
We're going to resurface the track.
All right.
We've talked about this a couple of times. We did join the co-op that we needed to join in order to get state term and co-op pricing. So we're asking you to approve a not to exceed $175,000 amount. The quote that we have was for $171,700. That's just taking the surface off and then resurfacing. So we wanted to have a little bit of money in there just in case there's some patch or something that we need to have for the asphalt that's underneath. But we don't expect to have any major problems with the asphalt. So yeah, we are able to get that done in June. Should be done before the 4th of July and not hold up the 4th of July celebrations. And then of course, football in the fall.
We will publish public notification. The stadium's most likely going to be closed for 3 to 4 weeks based upon the curing process that's necessary. So we'll provide plenty of advance notice. We'll work with Patrick Gallo in the communications department and the city of New Albany to try to communicate throughout the community at large the closure. But we hope to be completely back open by the 4th of July.
And going through the co-op and during the state term, we're able to do this less than 200,000. And we originally thought we were going to be at about 260,000. So that's really good news for us. And it will once again be a safe track, and we'll be able to host our own track meets.
In comparison with other tracks that are being placed or put in now, this is comparable to what a lot of other districts are doing.
Yeah. We're not going with any of the fancy colors.
We're doing
So
red.
We're doing a red
So
color.
it will no
Do red
longer
or
be black. It will be red. But there was no significant cost differential, and it was actually recommended by the manufacturers to actually put in the red track. So we're listening to the experts, but quite honestly, because of the co-op research that Becky and I did, to your question, President McClellan, we're actually installing the new track at a lower rate than everyone else with whom we've spoken to related to what they paid. So we think we're $25,000 plus under for the quality of track that we're receiving because we're purchasing through the co-op to then come back to state term. So it's creative, but it's saving us money. We will use bond residual to pay for the track. So we've reported on that in previous meetings, but just to remind you, it will come out of bond residual if you approve the purchase this evening.
Other questions?
Your track parents are going to love you. I've gotten lots of email and lots of phone calls.
Exciting.
And it's been how long since we hosted a track invitational here?
3 years.
Well, it's fortunate that one of our school colors is a shade of red.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, this will just be a little bit brighter.
Oh,
It is-
okay.
Fade a bit.
It is a true red, so the fire department's going to like it.
Maybe they want to sponsor it.
They don't. Let's not push the envelope. Okay.
All right, so next item then is public participation, and no one has signed in at this point, so let's move on to treasurer's items. We just have the one item tonight, so I need a motion on the approval of the high school track resurfacing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I guess there's no further discussion that we need to have then? No further questions, right? I guess we can go ahead and take the roll.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. Superintendent's items. We have some personnel items, board policy adoption, any other general business. Can we take these all together? We'll take them all together. So kind of a motion then for superintendent's items A1 to C1.
So moved.
Second.
Kalinowski and Mr. Newmoff. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you. You have standard employment actions this evening for personnel items. There's one specifically that I'll highlight for you, and it's the recommendation number 3 in personnel for the board to approve a 2-year administrative contract for Jessica Mamias. She's here this evening. She's the survivor, as I will call it, of our rigorous interview process to become the coordinator of assessment and accountability that we created a position for within our school district to align to the statement of purpose and continuous improvement plan to specifically help with the data analysis and ultimately test coordination district-wide throughout our school district. So Jess will be joining us from the Olentangy School District. She has 14 years of experience in teaching, evaluation, and assessment. She currently serves as an assistant principal at Orange High School, where she also taught for 11 years. She's worked at the Ohio State University and has created professional development for teachers to incorporate inquiry-based learning into classrooms. She has also taught previously at Centennial High School in the Columbus City School District. She's presently enrolled in a doctoral program at The Ohio State University, and we are beyond excited that Jessica has accepted our opportunity to join the leadership team within our school district and become the data wheelhouse person that we desperately need. So data is her wheelhouse. I will tell you, she survived everything associated to the interview process, and I'm saying that like jokingly, but I will tell you, she did go through 3 very intense interviews. She had to do a data analysis project. She had to produce results based upon the analysis. So it was a hands-on interview that she was given opportunity to participate within, and there was homework given in between the interviews that she had to submit for ultimately submission as well. So we took this position very seriously to make sure this person understands data, how to use data ultimately to impact student outcomes and benefit pedagogical instructional practices for teachers. And Jess is an incredible superstar. So we're very excited she's joining us, and I look forward to approving her contract this evening. Jess, would you like the opportunity to address the board or the public? If you would, you have to come to the microphone so that we can hear you on camera.
Just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Spent the last 12 years in Olentangy schools, and last night kind of hit me that this was happening, and so I'm very excited and appreciate the opportunity to work within my wheelhouse. So thank you.
We're excited to have you.
Jess was originally a chemist, so we're very excited she's coming to us. Other agenda items this evening, letter B has the the math adoption. Okay, computer, come back on.
All the policies.
Policies for approval this evening in my section. So it's the adoption of the policies that I previously discussed. And then under general business items this evening, we have the adoption of bridges for our school district for beginning with the 2017-18 school year.
We should note that the cost for the bridges is not completely going to be borne by the district. We do have some donations that are going to be made. You have to approve the entire amount though, because the money will be given to us and then we have to still spend the money, but it's not all general fund money.
The K through 5 and or K through 6, soon to be 3 PTOs based upon the new configuration, have graciously agreed with Mr. Emery to donate over $25,000 total, Scott. $24,000 to help purchase some of the math manipulatives that are part of the actual program. So we're very fortunate and again grateful to the PTOs for their continued support of the curriculum initiatives within the school district. So as Ms. Jenkins said, we are very fortunate, and you will approve those when we get the checks. So those will show up under donations when they're received by the district. That concludes the items this evening for the superintendent's report.
Okay, any other questions? All right, could I have a roll, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
President McClellan?
Yes. And that brings us to our closing items. Just before we adjourn, I guess it'd be important to point out that our next meeting is Monday, the 24th, and it'll be 6:30 here. With that, could I have a motion for adjournment, please?
So moved.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Second.
Mr. Bush? Have a roll, please.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
President McClellan?
Yes, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.